first question is always, how far back can you trace your family?
I don't have a family. I'm an orphan, so I know nothing about my blood relations. I only know what I was told, that I am one of the children of the cotton plantation owner's sons, who took advantage of, obviously, my mother, and therefore put me in a position of not being accepted by anybody.
And this was
See, because regardless if, African Americans want to admit it or not, mixed people have never been accepted on either side. Even though we may be white passing, and even though she may have married a white husband, she's still a mixed lady, a mulatta, if you will, and she's not going to be accepted fully by either side. Even though if you look at her life, white people accepted her more than black people, I'm sick of the narrative that black people accept mixed people because they don't. And she spent her life fighting for them.
plantation in South Carolina?
Yes.
That's actually my home state, so that's adorable.
And now,
St. Matthews, South Carolina.
St. Matthews?
Yeah.
I also had heard North South Carolina?
Well, we didn't know until I got a birth certificate about 6 or 7 years ago, when I decided to find a birth certificate to know what year I was actually born in, and for, if I could, see if there was a name on the birth certificate that would identify a father. But we found the birth certificate through the University of, what is the name of the university? I went down, Benedict College,
Right.
that I went down to do a benefit for. And as I'm always jokingly, meaningfully asking a question, or actually asking a question but meaning that I really want you to do this, and I said to the people who called me to do the benefit, well, since I'm doing this for nothing and I'm coming to South Carolina, would you have your students or someone do a research in Eartha Kitt to see if there's a birth certificate somewhere? Well, they did, and they found the birth certificate. But the birth certificate is all in the same handwriting, so the identification of a father is not real, made by the midwife.
So your feeling is that the midwife made it up? I mean, that she...
No, she told what she thought was the right thing to do, because if you have a white father, they protect both sides. So they don't give the identification of the father because they don't have to.
Exactly, they're going to protect him so he doesn't have to, pay, and she's not owed anything. But the part that, black people don't get is, how that must have felt for her. Because, a father of any race can do that, right? But the difference is she's not going to be accepted around black people, and she's not going to be accepted around white people, and she's living her life lonely, and she just knows it's because she has lighter skin and her dad's a plantation owner's son.
And so she put in the name...
Whatever name she thought of.
Which was Keith, something Keith Field or something...
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's Eartha May Keith. Keith. So the pronunciation of the name through centuries obviously became Kitt. But it's supposed to be a derivative of a German family, because I have gotten letters from Germany through the years that said that their great-great-great-grandparents went to America and they became farmers in that area of the world. And their name was Keith, and therefore they think that I'm one of them.
Uh-huh. And so this plantation was owned by the Keith family?
Maybe. Must be. But I don't remember that exactly what their name was, because I never talked to anybody. I never wanted to be seen. But I do remember as I was a child picking cotton along with the rest of the field workers, that this particular one boy of that family who used to come and pick up the bales of cotton or the big sheets of cotton at the end of the day, he was the one that was always throwing me food, nuts, or whatever was prevalent at the moment.
Throwing you food?
Throwing me. He was throwing me food, yes. Nuts and fruits and things. And always...
You throw food at an animal, you don't throw their food at a person.
Well, we were treated like animals. What else were you treated like when I was a kid in the South? We were not treated like people. We were treated like, what did it say? We're supposed to be, if you have one drop of white blood in you, you're still considered, what, an animal. We were not considered, what was it?
This is actually very common that when, like, someone knows they're doing wrong, right? They'll try to, in their way, like, oh, look, but I gave her food, so I wasn't that bad. I've seen this like 1,000 times on both sides. They'll know they're doing something wrong, so they'll try to make up for it by giving you the bare minimum and then be like, see, I wasn't doing wrong by her, but he knew. He knew he was her father. He knew he was wrong, and his guilt made him do that. Because he didn't do it for the other people, but he did it for her because of his guilt. But this is so common, honestly. Even with my grandmother, and she's from the South, like, the white people she used to work for will come and bring her stuff, and she doesn't pay no attention because she doesn't like them. But I can tell it's because of their guilt. They're trying to make right.
You, three-quarters of it, yes.
Every human being.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they said, the American Indians. There was nobody here. And they called them savages. And they destroyed them. They didn't, thank God they didn't destroy all of them. But it's amazing how a group of people will come into an area of the world, destroy the culture, destroy the isms of the people, and 200 years later they go back and dig it up to find out how intelligent those people were. I never did understand that kind of thinking, but that's what you call civilization does.
See, this is the argument that I have with a lot of black people, because I personally don't care about white people or any of that. Like, you know, I have a lot of white people that I'm very close with, but the people who were doing all these bad things weren't very intelligent, and it shows, you know? Like, if you think about it, they were the rejects from their countries. So why am I gonna be offended by somebody who literally doesn't know much doing all these things or saying racist? I've only ever had people who are poor white people do bad things. So it's like, I'm not gonna take offense to it. You're not even, you know what I mean, the standard in your community, so why would I care?
Kill off one culture to put in theirs, and then they realize what they've done, killing the intelligence of another person or another group of people, and then they dig it up. I see so much of that on television these days because I don't read as much as I used to, even though I was an avid reader at one time. My eyes are not that great anymore, so I get tired easily reading, but I watch History Channel. It's amazing what is being shown now. The history of the other worlds that we are now finding, how intelligent they were. And nothing that is being invented today or even thought of today, it was already thought of 2,500 billion years ago. And it's like knowledge goes around in the air, and all of a sudden, somebody, like Leonardo da Vinci, Dr. Einstein, George Washington Carver. Do we know as much about George Washington Carver as we should know? Not half. But it's coming out now, a lot of it. And I'm very grateful that television can be used as a school.
And your mother, as I understand it, was part Cherokee. You're talking about the American Indian.
That's what I was told.
And that heritage.
Yes.
Tell me what you remember about her.
I don't remember much about her. I do remember that she kept giving me away because she thought I was a nuisance, because she wanted to marry someone who already had 5 or 6 children. And he said, I don't want that yellow gal in my house.
Oh, but they'll defend this, though. They'll say, oh, but you gotta understand, it was slavery. It was segregation back then. But they don't care how the mixed person felt being rejected. They only care now that if we're colorist. But they don't see all the pain that they put everyone else through. That's fine, right? Treat mulattas and mulattoes like crap. But if it's done back to you, you want to cry. I just think that's very ironic.
So she gave me away to a family that would accept me as a working mule, but I was given away several times to a family that would use me as Cinderella.
See, but black people don't want to talk about that part. They always want to talk about how they were in the house, but they never want to talk about how a lot of the times they were treating young, minor, mixed race children like this. It seems like they're a lot more like white people than we are, huh?
No remembrance of her physically? Did you look like her? Or?
I don't remember that. I remember the woman that they sent me to in New York. They called that up north, that they sent me to. Because obviously they had written her a letter that said, if you do not take Eartha May away from that particular family and the last family that I was given to, that she would either be worked to death, abused to death, or starved to death. That's how badly they thought I was being treated.
All I'm gonna say is this wasn't a white family doing this to her. But, you know, we didn't have it bad as mixed people. We were treated well in those times, as they like to say.
And of course I didn't know any differently. I thought everyone was being treated the way I was being treated, except for the darker-skinned people who thought that I was not a member of the group and treated me like that. But the lady up north sent for me, and she said that she had gotten this letter from, I guess, the church people, who told them that she'd better get me out of there. And when I came to New York, which in the way I'm talking now geographically was up north, she looked like me. She had those features. She had that majestic, tall-ism about her. And she said she was my mother.
It's actually very common for mulattoes, especially ones who are also have like a bit of Cherokee or other native, to be tall, majestic looking. So that's interesting that her mom or on whoever she really was looked that way.
But she never explained anything more than that. So I have the impression that she was the one that was taken advantage of by the plantation owner's son, and out of shame gave me away, or left me however she did, and ran away. And that's how she wound up here in New York.
Okay, so let me make sure that I'm understanding the sequence here. You were born on this plantation, or around the plantation. You lived there for several years.
Around about,
yeah.
Yes. But we always worked on that plantation.
Right. And then I read somewhere that you and your mother were forced to leave the plantation, particularly because the owner or whoever didn't want this little yellow girl running around.
No? It wasn't a plantation. They didn't know what anything was all about. I don't even think that they recognized the fact. That one son, though, he knew. If the rest of the family knew, I don't know. But they were not the ones that made her leave. I think people in the church realized, or who knows, but people talk. And she kept moving because everywhere she landed, they would see me, and they would say, I will take Anna Pearl, which was her child, and she was very dark. And I'd take her, but I won't take her.
So it was the reverse of the kind of what people think of as the normal kind of discrimination, in terms of the darker person is the one who's
normal.
Well. Isn't it funny how they love to pretend that we're just making this up? But Eartha Kitt was born a long time ago, and she was dealing with the exact same thing that we talk about today. But they want to pretend it doesn't happen. They want to pretend that we aren't shunned, that we aren't treated badly, until we're doing good and no one wants anything to do with them. Then, oh my God, it's got to be colorism. It's got to be. It can't be how they've been treated their entire life. It has to be that we are the problem, because they can't accept the fact that they were the ones who treated it the same way the white people treated us. Or half the time, Eartha Kitt even admitted herself, white people don't care. They just honestly don't care this way or that way. But she admitted they accepted her sister or her cousin, whatever that woman was to her, but not her. But they wouldn't pretend that it's us. I just think that's hilarious.
Wow. Discrimination is on both sides. You know that.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
But, yes.
But it's what people are, historically, people are used to darker-skinned people being the victims of discrimination.
Yes.
What we're talking about here is a very different situation. You were a victim of discrimination because you were lighter than
Yes.
the average black person in the South.
Yes. So there's discrimination within the group itself.
Absolutely.
See, but the thing is, what they don't want to tell you is this exactly is why blue vein societies and so many other groups like Melungeons and other groups made their own separate identity and separated from the group because they were not accepted on either side. They want to say that it was colorism, but no, they were being mistreated and they acted accordingly.
Why? What was at the core of that discrimination? Why was it?
And they know that you're an illegitimate child. The discrimination comes from that. Not only are you illegitimate, but you're not my color. You're not one of us.
You're not one of us. But yet, when we say it, like, hey, I'm not the same as you, we're the problem now. You see, this thing all comes full circle. They don't want to claim us, but they can't help it. If we don't claim them, then we're anti. And that's not the case. Most of them have been anti-mixed since day one. But thanks for watching, guys. And shout out to all the allies who are black. We know it's not you. And we know that some of you guys go through your own thing. And this is not against you whatsoever. This is just for the people who are anti-mixed and don't understand why we need our own groups and our own spaces. Because things like this have been going on since Eartha Kitt's time and probably way before her. If we look into like other historical figures, and we need to talk about it because this affects us, and it's not fair that we have to remain silent when everybody else gets to tell their story.